Hey there, truth seekers. I'm Larry Litton, your guide through the maze of modern politics and power dynamics on liberty, leadership, and lies. Each episode will challenge the narratives, expose the lies, and celebrate the leaders who champion true liberty. Get ready to question, learn, and maybe even change your mind. So let's dive into the truth together. Good morning, once again from Wyoming this week, folks, and for the next few weeks. Yep, I'm back at work with my primary client out west. And because many of you, those of you who watch the video version of the show, are wondering about the change in my appearance, well, the change has been made to ensure that I meet the same grooming standards for the team members that I am coaching. Basically, my client has put into place new grooming standards for their teams on location for safety reasons and to ensure that I am not viewed as an outsider or somebody that's quote unquote special and not having to meet the same requirements to be on location as they have to meet, my fellow coaches and I are maintaining the grooming requirements of the client. In other words, we're being on the same team and not being an outsider while we are engaging with these guys on a day-to-day basis. It'll take some getting used to. After all, my hair hasn't been this short since I retired from the Navy more than 8 years ago. And the same thing goes for the facial hair. I haven't been this clean shaven since my retirement ceremony in June of 2017. It felt good to have my hair cut this short. I admit I was a bit leery about getting it cut when I first sat in the barber's chair, especially as I watched the big chunks of hair falling to the floor. In the end, though, it felt wonderful. There's also the added bonus of not having to mess with my hair that much before leaving the hotel room. Looking back, I don't know why I put much effort in my hair, since most of the time when I'm on location coaching, I'm wearing a hard hat as part of the PPE required to be on site with these guys. The sad part of this is that my regular barber or hairstylist that I use at home did not get to do this cut, and for reasons that I'll explain later. I had to use a barber here in Wyoming right after I landed because of the short turnaround time between my return from overseas and then hopping on a plane to get out here. Which leads me into this week's show, folks. Today, we'll be diving into some exciting topics. From my incredible European adventure, which included a 2-week cruise through some of Europe's most historic ports, and a look at the upcoming special election in Tennessee's Congressional District 7. Some interesting developments in the political scene here in Sevier County as well. Also, some upcoming guests for the program as we close out 2025. So lean in, folks. Let's talk liberty, leadership, and the pursuit of truth. Welcome to Liberty, Leadership, and Lies, the podcast where we unravel the complex web of politics, power, and deception. Each week, we dive into the stories behind the headlines, exploring how liberty is eroded and the selfishness of our political leaders, as well as the lies that shape our world. Join us as we dissect the truth from fiction by examining the tactics used by the new aristocracy, the political class, at the local, state, and national levels of government as we dare to challenge the status quo. Get ready for thought-provoking discussions, exclusive interviews, and a journey into the heart of what really drives our society. Liberty, Leadership, and Lies, where your understanding of the world begins to change. Tune in every Monday morning and prepare to see beyond the veil. Once again, good morning, everyone. As you can tell, the lighting is not the best to record these episodes here in these hotel rooms, but friends, I'm back from an unforgettable journey across Europe, and let me tell you, it was a whirlwind of history, culture, and reflection. My wife and I, along with our daughter, embarked on a 2-week cruise that started in Dover in the United Kingdom and took us to some of the most historic and iconic ports in Europe. Le Havre, France, Le Verdun, France, Bilbao, Spain, La Coruña, Spain, Porto, Portugal, Lisbon, Portugal, Malaga, Spain, Toulon, France, Livorno, Italy, Naples, Italy, and we finally ended up in Rome. Prior to the cruise, though, we spent a few days in London, England. Now, this is my first return to that iconic city since the spring of 2001, and let me tell you, it has definitely changed, and not for the better. When I say London has fallen, it really has. During my last visit there, when I was on active duty, the city was rich in the history of the British Empire, an empire or civilization where most of our Western culture and values were started or enhanced. Everyone spoke with that lovely British accent, stores, bus and cab drivers, just everybody. I really enjoy hearing that accent, which is probably why I primarily follow and work out with the British fitness coaches on the Peloton app when I'm out coaching or on the Peloton equipment in my home gym. Like people like John Hosky, Jermaine Johnson, and Jocelyn Thompson Rule. Well, it took nearly a full day of being in London to actually hear that accent from somebody. And it was in the hotel we were staying at. That reminds me, though, and before I move on, I have to give props to the hotel staff of the London Marriott Hotel County Hall. What an incredible hotel. Right next to the London Eye with an incredibly attentive staff. There is one thing that has remained consistent in my dealings with British people, and I mean the native Britons, that still remains true. They hold politeness and manners in such high regard. It's always a pleasure dealing with those folks. But going back to 2001 and my visit during that time, and a couple of other occasions during my time on active duty, London was a pleasant place to visit. Now, not so much. Our Uber drivers, when we use them, because we average like walking 8 miles a day around London, them, along with the shopkeepers and just about everyone else we encountered in our travels across London, didn't speak with a British accent. And in fact, didn't speak English very well at all. But after the cruise, we spent a day in Rome, which put a damper on the entire trip, as I will get to in a bit. Now, that was my third and probably last time in Rome. The only redeeming quality of Rome on this trip was at the airport Hilton, where we stayed. Top notch. Probably the best Hilton property I've ever or will ever stay at. So let's break down the 2-week cruise, though. First stop, really, the embarkation point was in Dover. Those iconic white cliffs greeted us as we boarded the ship. Now, Dover is a place steeped in history. Think World War II, the Battle of Britain. Walking through the port, you can feel the resilience of a nation that stood firm against tyranny. It's a reminder of what liberty looks like when it's defended with grit and determination. It was a stark contrast against what we saw in fallen London. London should serve as an example of unfettered immigration of people that do not possess Western values and refuse to assimilate into the countries they migrate to. But next up was our first port visit in Le Havre, France. This port town in Normandy is a gateway to history. Some of the passengers took a shore excursion to the D-Day beaches, Omaha, Utah, and Juneau. They got to stand where Allied forces landed in 1944. And while there, they could not help but feel the weight of the sacrifice. These young men, mostly young American men, fought for freedom against overwhelming odds. It's a humbling lesson in leadership, courage under fire, and a stark contrast to the lies we're fed today about what strength and courage really means. What the world witnessed then in 1944 is often called toxic masculinity today. Next up, we went to Le Verdun, France. It's a quaint coastal spot near Bordeaux. For the whole cruise, though, let me tell you, we did not take part in any shore excursions put on by the cruise ship. The girls and I disembarked and we chose our own paths to follow and places to visit. But at this port, one can find the Cordon Lighthouse, which is a site built in 1611. It's a marvel of engineering, still standing after centuries of storms. It got me thinking about enduring principles, like our Constitution, built to weather the storms of time, but only if we, the people, protect them. From there, we traveled to Bilbao, Spain. We explored a lot of the city. Some fellow passengers visited the Guggenheim Museum, which is a masterpiece of modern architecture. My girls and I visited the historic Bilbao Cathedral. The blend of old and new here is striking. Plaza Nueva was buzzing with locals enjoying the local Spanish tapas. It's a city that honors its past while embracing the future, a balance we could use more of our own in our leadership back home. Now, next up was La Coruna, Spain, our second favorite port call. We walked up to the Tower of Hercules, which is a Roman lighthouse still in use after 2,000 years. That's a testament to the endurance of those times. I also thought about the endurance of liberty. Structures like this stand because people maintain them. Our republic is the same. It requires constant vigilance to maintain. From there, it was on to Porto, Portugal, where we wandered through the cobblestone streets and enjoyed some cappuccinos and pastries. The city's charm lies in its authenticity. No pretense, just real people living their lives. It's a reminder that liberty thrives when people are free to be themselves, not molded by government overreach. Next up during the itinerary was Lisbon, Portugal, which was supposed to be a highlight of our cruise, at least for the girls it was. It kind of fell flat though. Often the cities that we visited were on some sort of holiday, which reminds me that I should inform the audience that when you book a trip like this in the future, make sure you look at the calendar for the cities you visit prior to booking. Make sure that the city or town isn't shut down because of a local or national holiday. From there, we encountered what was unanimously decided the highlight of our port visits, Malaga, Spain. Now, that place offered sunsoaked beaches and a taste of the Costa del Sol's party vibe. But it is also home to Picasso's birthplace, a nod to creativity and individuality. Leadership means fostering that kind of freedom. Let people create, innovate, and thrive without bureaucrats stifling them. Next up, we hit Toulon, France, a city which is rich with a naval history that rivals our own. The port was a key player in naval campaigns like the 1744 Battle of Toulon. It's a reminder that defending liberty often means projecting strength, something our leaders could learn from today. It is something that President Trump does on a daily basis. It is also something that the modern Republican Party has forgotten. We then traveled to Livorno, Italy, which is a gateway stop to Florence and Pisa. I actually had visited this city before back in 2013 during my last deployment on the USS Monterey. There isn't much there in Livorno, but with their train station, it can get you to any part of Italy you want to go. My girls and I took the train up to Pisa, the Leaning Tower, smaller than you'd think, but still a marvel. The group of buildings where the Tower of Pisa is located is called the Piazza dei Miracoli, which translates to Square of Miracles or Field of Miracles. The formal name is Piazza del Duomo, Cathedral Square, and it features four main religious structures: the cathedral, Duomo, the baptistery, and the campanile, the leaning tower, and the monumental cemetery. We toured all of them, except for walking up the stairs to the top of the tower, which in my fear of heights mind was just too freaky to do, but it was awesome. I have to give it to the early Italian Catholic Church. They knew how to build churches. As a matter of fact, my girls and I focused each port visit on touring the old churches built in those cities. Most of the ones we visited were older than the United States of America itself. The architecture we saw screamed human potential. When government gets out of the way, people build wonders. Our next to last stop was in Naples, Italy. Let me tell you, the armpit of Italy, and a place I, as well as my bride, have visited before. In fact, this location played a large part in my decision to retire from the Navy. If I were to stay in longer than 30 years, I would have had to take an assignment as the 6th Fleet Command Master Chief, which is based in Naples. It was such a dirty location, outside of very few spots like Pompeii, that the juice just wasn't worth the squeeze by taking that assignment. Some friends we made on the cruise visited Pompeii, though. While walking through those ancient ruins preserved by volcanic ash, you can see how fragile civilizations are. Lies and corruption brought Rome down once. We can't let that happen to our republic. Finally, the low light of the cruise, Rome. We ended the cruise there and stayed one night before our flight home. While Rome is a living history book, empire, faith, betrayal, and redemption, it is also a warning. Liberty requires leadership that's accountable to the people, not power-hungry elites. The low light of the vacation happened shortly after leaving the train station for our walking tour of Rome. When you are warned about the pickpockets there, do not take it lightly. Less than 10 minutes after arriving, my wallet was taken and right out of my front pocket. Thankfully, I only carried one credit card, my driver's license, and some cash. And Denise had a sling bag on with her stuff in it. The sling bag is apparently much harder to get into than pockets. That loss of my license and the credit card was canceled within a minute of my wallet being stolen. And cash is replaceable, but I just prayed that the money taken went to feeding people in need. But the loss of my license required that I spend my brief stop at home before returning to work out here in Wyoming by making a trip to the DMV to get a replacement driver's license before my current work trip because I have to rent a car and drive here. Now, hats off to the staff at the Sevierville DMV office. I spent less than an hour there after fearing I would spend all day there. And they were so helpful and got me on my way in less than an hour. Not all DMVs are the same, and the Sevierville DMV sits at the top of the hill of all DMVs that I have used in my 40 plus years of licensed driving. But this trip wasn't just a vacation. It was a journey through the roots of Western civilization. Every port showed me how liberty, leadership, and lies have shaped history. The question is, what are we doing today to preserve our own legacy? And with that, the recap of my vacation, I'm back at work here just to pay for the vacation, as Pastor Mike mentioned during yesterday's live in the lobby while I was watching online services from my hotel room here in Riverton. Stick around through this quick break, though, folks, and we'll get into some Tennessee politics. I'll be right back. And we're back. Before we move to Tennessee politics, a quick note. My blog at libertyleadershipandlies.com has photos and stories from the trip. It contains links to my personal Facebook page where I documented the trip through photos. Check the blog out and subscribe for any updates. And don't forget to follow me on X. I'm at Larry4TN12 and at Lies Liberty. Folks, Tennessee's Congressional District 7 is gearing up for a special election, and it's a big deal for our state and our nation. This district, covering parts of Middle Tennessee, including Williamson, Maury, and parts of Davidson County, is a conservative stronghold. But don't let that fool you. Every election matters, and this one's no exception. The special election is happening because Congressman Mark Green resigned before the end of his term for some unknown reasons. What we do know is that this race will test the pulse of Tennessee's conservative values. Will we elect a leader who stands for liberty, or will we get more of the same establishment lies? Let's talk about what's at stake. District 7 is affluent, educated, and growing fast. Think Franklin and Brentwood. Voters here care about low taxes, strong schools, and keeping government out of their lives. But there's a catch. The political class, those people I call the new aristocracy, they love to promise one thing and deliver another. We've seen it with Transpublican Governor Bill Lee's bloated budgets, the General Assembly's failures to turn off the magnet to illegal aliens here in Tennessee, and attacks on our Second Amendment rights. The GOP candidates seem to have been finalized, as well as the commies candidate in the left-wing loon that is Afton Bain. That's the General Assembly member who was behind the doxing of ICE agents in Tennessee recently. So it's a crowded field. There are establishment Republicans, grassroots conservatives, and the one crazy. So my advice, look for someone who walks the talk, someone who's not afraid to stand in the arena, as I always say. We need a representative who will fight for fiscal responsibility, our constitutional rights, and not just vote or parrot party lines. In my view, there is one that truly stands out in meeting that criteria. He also happens to be a prior, and I hope future, guest on this program, State Representative Jody Barrett. Well, folks, leadership in Congress is about accountability. Look at the Oversight and Accountability Committee. Folks like James Comer and Jim Jordan who are digging into government overreach, but they're up against a wall of lies from the other side. District Seven's next representative needs to join that fight and not add to the noise. They need to be fighters that fight like President Trump and not just put out campaign flyers with pictures of them standing alongside President Trump. Jody Barrett is that candidate. While his election to Congress would mean a loss of his conservative voice in our General Assembly, it would be a gain for the Republic by bringing our Tennessee values to the nation's capital. So here's my call to action: get informed. Check the candidates' records, not just their ads or their glossy flyers. Will they push for liberty, or are they cozy with the DC swamp? Do they attend town halls? Do they get asked tough questions? And do they vote like our republic depends on it? Because it does. Do the candidates walk the talk or just talk the talk? There is only one candidate with a perfect conservative voting record in this race. That is the one Tennessee needs in our national government. There's also been another development in a key race for the Tennessee Senate. Our good friend and staunch conservative, Gary Humble, has decided to have another go at the out-of-state bankrolled and globalist Senate Majority Leader, Jack Johnson. The last election was very close, and I believe that the lessons learned during that campaign bode well for the cause of liberty and conservatism here in Tennessee. And we can take out one of those pillars of transpublicanism in our General Assembly during that election. Gary has already agreed to come on the show again here soon, and I'm looking forward to it. Mark your calendars for the Freedom Fest on October 4th, hosted by the Tennessee Constitutional Grassroots Coalition. That will be a great place to connect with like-minded patriots. Tickets are available at tcgc.org. Another campaign to keep an eye on is the race for Tennessee's next governor. I've not paid attention to the announced commie candidates at this point, but there's an interesting race brewing for the GOP nomination. At this point, there are only two announced candidates, which doesn't give the voters here in Tennessee much of a choice, right? The biggest name recognition candidate is the senior senator from Tennessee, Marsha Blackburn, a person I firmly believe is only conservative when it is required, but she touts herself as President Trump's biggest ally in the Senate. If that were true, why would she abandon her post in that chamber of Congress that needs more Trump allies now more than ever? If it were you or I and you knew that President Trump needs more and stronger allies in the Senate, why would you seek a position where you cannot help the president in enacting his agenda? You know the answer to that, don't you? It is for personal gratification, not commitment to conservative or American first principles, which is a pattern with Marsha Blackburn. The other announced GOP candidate is Congressman John Rose, who right now represents Tennessee's 6th congressional district in Middle Tennessee. As it stands right now, I'm in the works of getting Congressman John Rose on the program so the voters here in Tennessee can be exposed to someone other than the establishment's pick for our next governor. Hopefully, the campaign will answer in the affirmative real soon. Of course, I will offer the Blackburn campaign the same opportunity, but I highly doubt they will accept. Ever since her announcement, I have asked her the one question in the campaign that truly needs answering. What will you do differently than Bill Lee has already done? Every day I have asked that question on her various social media platforms. She or her campaign won't answer, though, because like Bill Lee, she is the establishment pick and will do what the establishment wants, not what Tennesseans want. You know that I will ask Congressman Rose that very same question too. Tennesseans need to know that if you are going to run as a Republican for governor, that you need to be vastly different than transpublican Bill Lee. Now, something interesting just happened. There are rumors of at least one other candidate concerning jumping into the arena. And if this person does, I will work my hardest to get them elected into the governor's mansion. Why? Well, this rumored person is the exact right person to lead Tennessee back to its founding principles, back to its constitutional principles. That is the statewide politics every Tennessean needs to be watching closely because it affects us all. Things closer to home here in Sevier County are becoming interesting as well. Tennessee's longest serving county mayor announced that he will not be seeking reelection. The mastermind behind the abysmal response to the 2016 wildfires will not seek the mayor's office again, ending 47 years in office. Seen a couple of people that announced they will seek the office, and while I only know and have personally met one of them, in my opinion, roadkill would be better than what we have currently. Maybe we could get somebody in that office that would care more for the current residents of Sevier County than they do for the tourist dollar or the home builder dollar, if you know what I mean. Maybe we can get a Republican who actually believes in intelligent design, not only in our creator, but infrastructure as well. You know what I mean? Right now, I'm issuing an open invitation to any and all candidates for Sevier County Mayor to come on this program to share their platform with the residents of this great county and share with us their vision and position on the many issues that directly impact the lives of my fellow Sevier County residents. Now, there's another local election coming up that we here in Sevier County should be paying attention to. That would be the race for Sevier County Sheriff. Imagine my surprise when I found out that somebody other than Sheriff Hodges is running for that position. Longtime listeners should already know what I think about our current sheriff, who is also the current Sevier County GOP chairman. If you don't, well, think about this definition of integrity. You are who you are when nobody is looking. If you are willing to lie and cheat in one part of your life, you're definitely willing to lie and cheat in all parts of your life. If you are willing to corrupt the process to get the result you desire in one job, you are quite possibly willing to corrupt the process to get the result you desire in all the jobs you are entrusted with. I have reached out to this other individual running for sheriff, and he is thinking about coming on the program. I hope that he accepts the invitation to come on the show and share his position and vision with my Sevier County audience. We desperately need change here, folks. With all that being said, I'll wrap up my return to the show after a long absence in the closing segment, along with my thoughts and a call to action about what we discussed today, along with God's word for this week's show. So stick with me. I'll be right back. As we wrap up, folks, let's tie this week's show together. My European journey reminded me that liberty is fragile. It's built on sacrifice, vigilance, and truth. Whether it's the D-Day beaches or the ruins of Pompeii, history shows us what happens when leadership fails and lies prevail. Here in Tennessee, the District 7 special election is our chance to choose a leader who will fight for our Tennessee values, not sell us out to the highest out-of-state bidder. I'm already working on some future guests for the show that I am sure the audience will appreciate. As I mentioned earlier, Gary Humble has agreed to come on the show and hopefully many times before his next election. I'm working on getting Congressman John Rose on the show to discuss his vision for Tennessee should he defeat the establishment candidate, Senator Marsha Blackburn. Also, if the rumors turn out to be true and my preferred candidate jumps into the gubernatorial campaign, I will be sure to ask their campaign to have that candidate come on the show. In addition to them, I'm working with the author of the book, DC Swamp Strikes Back, Aaron Burr, Donald Trump, and their similar battles, a Mr. Dennis Brennan, to make an appearance on the program, along with another author and entrepreneur, Mr. Simon Golden, to come on the show and discuss prioritizing sustainability over growth, as well as Mr. Bryce Eddy for a discussion on cultural battles, faith, and leadership in a future episode. In closing, this week's wisdom from God's word comes to us from the book of Revelation, chapter 2, verse 22. I know your works, your toil, and your patient endurance, and how you cannot bear with those who are evil, but have tested those who call themselves apostles and are not, and found them to be false. You know, folks, we encounter so many false leaders in today's political landscape that the time for sitting on the sidelines is over, ladies and gentlemen. Heed the call to action in these upcoming elections, as I discussed. In fact, it is a perpetual call to action in our constitutional republic. We are living through the effects of political and spiritual apathy right now, and I hope it is waking each and every one of us up to our duty to be the discerning voter. wake us all up to take part in our system of self-governance, to fulfill the duty required for citizenship in a republic. So thanks for leaning in today. Please subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Visit libertyleadershipandlies.com for more. And let's keep standing in the arena for liberty, leadership, and the truth. Until next time, God bless you, God bless Tennessee, and God bless America. So until next week, Reveille, it's time to wake up.